Good afternoon. Welcome to the Deal Doctor live stream Monday afternoon. It's 1 o'clock. And if you saw the announcement on Facebook Connect, the topic today is change. Not the kind you get when you go to the McDonald's from your $5 bill or nowadays $20 bill. But anyway, change is inevitable. It always has been. And as an example, in 1984, I watched a commercial for Apple Computer's brand new Macintosh computer, the very first Macintosh computer by Apple. A couple of days later, I was in a store test driving one. Back then it cost about $3,000, if I recall. And it had virtually no memory. But it was very easy to use, very user-friendly, and the guy who swore he would never learn how to use a fax machine or a computer found himself using a computer, because I realized that if I didn't change my thought, and I would be a relic by the time I was 40 years old. There were people I knew in college. I was 32 years old at the time, and I knew that there were 20-somethings, young ones, in college learning computer skills. And that if I didn't change, if I didn't adapt, then I was going to be essentially a dinosaur in my business by the time I was 40 years old or less. So I made the choice to become knowledgeable about computers back in 1984. There's a movie, I don't know if you've seen it, but it was called Heartbreak Ridge, starring Clint Eastwood as a Marine gunnery sergeant, and Gunny Highway was his character. And it says in one point, "You're Marines now. You adapt, you overcome, you improvise." Think about that. As real estate agents, we've watched, any of us who've been around at all, have watched the nature of the business world as a whole change. How many people, men, out there wear ties anymore, suits and ties every day to work? Now, some of us still I put a suit and tie on for a closing, but I don't wear one every day. Some people don't even own one anymore. And so the nature of our business world has changed. It's much more informal, relaxed in most cases. And the way we sell real estate has changed. When I came into the business back in the late 1980s, we were just beginning to connect on the MLS with a dial-up modem. It wasn't the internet. In fact, it was 3 or 4 years later in 1991 when I connected to the internet for the first time. But I saw the potential for the internet in 1991. And within 5 years, I had launched my own real estate website in 1996. I saw change coming, massive, overwhelming change. And so I chose to adapt. And I think that one of the things that we have to be very careful of is getting stuck in doing things as we've always done them. And sometimes we have to get out of our own way, get over ourselves, get over our prior experience and knowledge because it doesn't apply anymore. It's not applicable to today's situation, the manner in which we do business, the change in the market situations. And so we have to learn how to adapt, to overcome, to improvise. And good case in point. Let's talk about appraisals. This is one of my, forgive me, it's one of my pet peeves, but I get calls all the time from agents who say, I'm never going to recommend to my buyer that they purchase a house for more than the appraisal price. Okay. How many times you want to lose in a bidding war? Is that doing the best job for your client? Is that protecting their fiduciary interests? Because it might take 2 or 3 years before they finally get into a house, and they will lose all of that potential equity they might have built over the last several years as they lost one house after another house after another house because you kept advising them never to pay more than the appraisal price. But some agents are resistant to changing their thought process about that. To me, someone who got into a house 3 years ago and maybe paid a couple of $3,000 more for the house than the appraisal came back, has now gained about $20,000 in equity. I don't understand quite what the problem with that is. And again, we have to change our thinking because the nature of the market has changed dramatically. I know I've covered this before, but an appraisal, for example, is just a snapshot in time. It's that quick. The comparable sales that they use and that an appraiser uses may not be available. They might have fallen off in terms of the length of time that they can use them and the limit they can use them. And as a result, let's say that the comps that are available today, this snapshot in time, come up less than what the sales price is. But maybe tomorrow or next week, there will be comps that close which would more than justify the purchase price. So here we are as agents making the recommendation, I would never pay more than the appraiser says the house is worth. How many sales will it take to lose before you understand that may not be in the best interest of the client? That maybe the client needs to have all of the information and say, it may be more than the appraisal says, but here's what an appraisal really is. Now, based on today's market values, it's in the ballpark. It may be more than the appraiser says it's worth, but do you like the house? You're going to be living here for the next 10 years or 5 years or 20 years. We don't know. But in that period of time, the likelihood is the value is going to go up to cover that price above the appraisal price. But still, agents I hear it every day. Agents are still stuck in the mindset that they cannot allow, they will fight tooth and nail to get the buyer the house for the appraisal price. And very often shoot their buyers in the foot, not themselves, and it's not their house. Not going to shoot they do in terms of the commission. But the point is, are we doing the right thing for our sellers when we become so much the experts that we don't consider other possibilities and the changing nature of our marketplace? As a former mentor of mine once said, the trains are coming. He said that a lot. The trains are coming. And what he meant by that is change is coming. No matter where you are in the market today, right now we are in a seller's market. And I will guarantee you that at some point, that's going to change. At some point, It's going to be a buyer's market, or it's going to level out into an equitable buyer-seller market. It will change, guaranteed. And if we all knew when, we'd all be millionaires. So, but the important thing is to be ready for that change, be ready to adapt, be ready to improvise, and be ready to overcome based on the current market conditions that are occurring. We've seen the real estate business change dramatically. As I said, I got in before we were even connected to the internet. We had these little cards that we looked at every morning. We had the same ritual. We get coffee, and then we flip over these little, 3x5 cards, and we look, let's see what's on the new on the market. And then it was lunchtime. Yeah. And then we make it, maybe if we were really aggressive, we'd make some calls after lunch and see if anybody might be interested in buying one of those houses that came out in the day's packet of brand new listings. And then the internet came along. The dial-up modem came first for a few years, and then the internet. And now suddenly, consumers have the ability to go onto various websites, not only the Grand Rapids Association of Realtors or GCAR or Flex as a whole, or anywhere in the state of Michigan and beyond, but they can use third-party sites like Zillow and Realtor.com and so on. They have educated themselves dramatically over the last 20 years in their knowledge of real estate and what they can do. And we are going to continue to see change. There are now some real estate organizations which are salary-based. For example, we have seen discount brokers come along that are doing limited service agreements. They basically take $500 or $1,000 and throw a listing up on the MLS, and then they walk away and do nothing. That's not what 5-Star does. And so we have to have a unique selling proposition, not only as a company, but as an individual. And as a company, we want to be known to you agents as the folks who are going to provide real-time support. When you're out there in the field doing battle, we want to be there for you and provide you the equipment that you're going to need when you are in the midst of battle. And so we have to adapt to that change as well. And we are constantly looking at how we can do that better for you. And you're going to see some changes, as I think Paul has alluded to some of them, but we're doing video education things and many other things that you're going to see. I don't want to focus on that right now. But sometimes, no matter how short a time we've been in the business, whether it's 5 years, a few years, 10 years, 30 years, sometimes we can get paradigms built into our brains, things, preconceptions that it will take dynamite to blow out of place. For example, how good is a CMA today? Is a comparative market analysis an indication of the true value or market value of a home? Maybe, and maybe not. Because again, as with appraisers, a comparative market analysis is only as good as the comparable properties you can pull up for it. Now, let's say, for example, you have a potential listing coming up, and you do a CMA, and you look at it every which way. You get on RPR, you pull out all the comps, and you measure it, and you do all sorts of analysis of it, and then you go out on the listing appointment and you say, your house is worth, let's say, $200,000. And they go, huh? I think it's worth $250,000. And you go, well, no. See, right here, right here, on this CMA, right here. See that I've analyzed it this way, and I've analyzed it this way, and I looked over here, and I analyzed that, and it's $200,000. Okay? And they say to you, well, thanks for coming in. Love you to pieces, but I think we're going to talk to other people. And it's like, you go, Mom, come on. Are you serious? No. Anyway, they may have wanted to list with you. They didn't have anyone else in mind until you came in and told them that their house was worth less than they thought it was. Now, I don't know about you. Those of you who own homes and don't, I have no idea. But I own a home. I've owned homes since 1977. And I have always had a really, really good idea of what my home is worth, because it's one of the biggest investments of one's lifetime. So at any given time over the last 40 years, I've had a really good idea about what my home is worth. I could tell you probably within $3,000 what my home would sell for today. Most homeowners have a really good idea of what their house is worth. And if they've been watching the market and educating themselves on the market through the internet, granted, some of Zillow, some of the third-party websites are completely wrong. Sometimes they hit it right, but not that often. But the point is, if we have a prospective listing who says, you know what, I want to try $250,000, and you go, wait, no. I made sounds that probably just hurt Dom's ears, but she's shaking his head yes. But if there are verbal or nonverbal cues that we are giving off in a listing presentation, which say, I know more about real estate than you, and you've got to follow my lead, then maybe you're not making the changes that are important in order to adapt and improvise in a changing real estate market. And how do you do that? Well, sometimes that's tough, because I remember Floyd Wickman. You've heard me mention him before, one of my mentors. And Floyd used to say it's better to walk away from a listing that's priced too high than to take the listing and disappoint them later. To that, I would say, Floyd, you're full of it today, in today's market. Now, that may have been true in 2010, when we had to give people really hard truths about the value of their homes in that market. Sometimes it was devastating to tell them that their house was worth $50,000 less than they thought it was, or $100,000 less, and that they were underwater on the property and so on. But it's what we had to do in order to be honest with them and to help them understand that the market had changed from what it had been at the peak in 2005. So by the same token, since 2010, in the last 10 years, it's completely turned that market on its head, completely. If there's any shred of 2010 left in your brain, I encourage you to do whatever it takes to get rid of that. Now, you may need it again at some point. I hope not. I hope we never see something like that again. But we may see property values at some point level off or drop. It's the nature of any investment. It's the nature of real estate. For decades, Grand Rapids prided itself that our growth in housing values, in home equities, went up slowly but steadily over a 40 or 50 year period of time. They took great pride in that. And then in 2010, 2008 actually, they plummeted, and everybody was taken aback that Grand Rapids would be dragged down into this vortex of prices just spinning down the drain. They always figured that this conservative growth would protect them from volatile changes. Well, guess what? They learned a new lesson in 2008. And for the next several years, we saw property values plummet until they started to turn around. So again, agents had to learn something new. Between 2008 and 2012, agents were learning how to sell short sale or foreclosures or convince their clients that they had to sell for less money than they had hoped for. Let's pretend. Let's go back to that $250,000 seller, the one with the listing who thinks that their house should sell for $250,000. And you think, based on your comps, that it should be $200,000. Do you walk away from the listing? Not in this market, I wouldn't. I had another mentor, Gene Carup, owned his own real estate company for many years, very well respected, and knew absolutely everything there was to know about real estate. And I sat across from him in this sort of boiler room type of office, and I listened to him on the phone, talked to his clients. I learned as much as I could, asked him all sorts of questions. And one of the things that he said to me, and obviously I've never forgotten it, he said, it's really hard to get a price reduction if it's not your listing. That sink in. It's really hard to get a price reduction if it's not your listing. Now that went against everything that Floyd Wickman, David Knox, and everybody else was telling me about getting listings, getting them priced right. You got to get them priced right. Well, the market has changed. Many experienced agents are thinking, and it's hard for me, frankly, sometimes to comprehend some of the prices that are out there, but they are. I've been showing houses that are selling for $200,000, and I'm thinking, this thing shouldn't be anywhere near 200. It might be more like 89.9. But it's not true because the market has changed. And in that respect, I have to learn to adapt to the new market prices out there today. Agents who are coming into this market new and essentially untarnished by their history are looking at a $200,000 house and going, oh yeah, that's a $200,000 house. And some of us who've been in the market, in the business a long time, are thinking, are you kidding? That's just wild. Story recently about an agent who went out and, I'm just going to use a number, was $250,000, didn't think that they were going to get $250 and anywhere near $250. And that was the highest he could go. And the thing ended up selling for $287.5 or something like that. I'm just using those numbers because it's the best I can recall. But it was similar. And the agent who does a lot of business and has for nearly 40 years was dumbfounded. He was flabbergasted that he was 15% off the market in his evaluation of the value of that property. Wow. An agent who's been in the business that long, selling literally thousands of homes over his career, could be so far off. But it's not unusual. And we have to look at this market and as I said before, get over ourselves, get over our historical thinking and start to adapt and improvise based on what the current market conditions are. And Dom's looking at me like I got a question. Look at that. Yeah, you know, he's my wingman.
It came in a few minutes ago, but it's from Michelle Lipka.
Okay.
I put it in your document. You have that pulled up?
No, I don't have my documents pulled up, but I will be there in just a moment if you. By the way, this is a very formal setting we have here. I just wanted to clear that up. What do you do when your seller has an unrealistic unrealistic opinion of the market value of his home? Even after an appraisal, he will not come down. Well, that's a good question, Michelle. And I would say to you, take the listing. First of all, it depends on how unrealistic. And again, an appraisal is only a snapshot in time, as I mentioned at the beginning of this segment. An appraisal is only a snapshot in time. Appraiser's job is to protect the bank, to protect the lender. It's not to protect the buyer. It is to protect the lender's interests. So the lender wants to know that they're not lending too much money on a house. Do you think an appraiser is going to shoot low or shoot high when they appraise a property? So it's very possible that even though there's an appraisal been done, it may not actually be the market value. Now, here's a couple of things. I'm glad you asked the question about what do you do, because here's one of the things I've done for a long time. I rarely turn down a listing, even if it's overpriced, based on my market analysis, based on an appraiser's opinion, whatever. I rarely turn down. But what I try to do is, I can appreciate how you feel, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that you feel as though your house is going to be worth $300,000. I get that. And you know, it might happen. How about we do this? We're going to know without a shadow of a doubt, within 2 weeks, we are going to have absolute certainty whether or not your house is going to get a $300,000 offer. Because in that period of time, given today's market and the marketing that I am going to do for the property within the first week to 10 days of the property, if we don't have multiple offers on the property within 10 days, I will guarantee you that the price is too high. Time is not going to fix that problem. And so how about we do this? How about if we don't have an offer on the table within 2 weeks of listing the home tonight, we're going to lower the price, maybe let's say halfway between what I think it'll sell for and what you think it'll sell for, maybe about here. Does that make sense? You might get them to say no, or they might say no, or you might get them to say yes. If they say yes, what I would do is I actually fill out a pre-authorized price reduction, which automatically kicks in. I don't have to go back to them and say, oh, by the way, it's been 2 weeks. We've marketed the daylights out of your house, and we've got nothing. We've had, 3 showings. All of the feedback from the showings has been that the price is too high. We've gotten no offers and so on. And what I can tell you is that in this market, that's not good. That's bad. In this market, we should have 3 to 10 showings a day, depending upon the market value or the market activity in that price range. So, and then I even go a step further with them and I say, how's about if we do this? How's about if we, after 2 weeks, if nothing's happening on the house, we haven't had any offers, we're having relatively few showings, we go to here, about halfies. And then if we still, after another 2 weeks, haven't seen any offers, we're going to have to get right down to where I suggest the property will sell. Does that seem fair? It's really hard, again, Gene Carup, my mentor, it's really hard to get those price reductions if it isn't your listing. In today's market, get the listing. At least you can come back to them and say, you know what? We might have been off a little on our price. Now there's a couple of things we can do. We can move the house to a more expensive neighborhood, or we can completely renovate the house so it looks phenomenal, but that's probably not going to get you that much more money. How about if we change the price into a different bracket? And I always talk about brackets because people think in terms of 5,000 or 10,000 or 25,000. They don't think about little dollars. And I never, ever change a price for less than 5% of the purchase price. Because over all of these years, I've tracked the sales prices of my properties that I've listed, and I can tell you that if I get within 5% of in the listed price of the actual sales price, I will get offers. So if I'm not getting offers, I will guarantee you the price is going to be less than 5% lower than the purchase price. So I always do price reductions that are at least 5%.
An addition.
The home was listed all last summer without a single offer. He still won't budge. Well, there's a time to walk away, and that may be it. I don't know what his motivation is. I think that if I were in your shoes, I would probably start asking him, if I haven't already, what is your motivation? Well, do you really want to sell? What's your hope? He is both very emotionally attached to the home and cash strapped. Ouch. Yeah, two very tough ones. The cash strapped probably being the more, the bigger reason that he can't do a price reduction. I mean, if he's underwater on a house in this market, all I can say is, I wonder where, if he's got second mortgages out on it, because the values of homes have gone up so fast and furious that in this market, it's almost impossible to be underwater on a house in this market. Emotionally attached, well, then he doesn't want to leave. So do we want to continue pursuing a listing that there's no motivation? He wants to stay where he is. I guess I would ask, why does he have it on the market at all? Is he looking for a golden goose? Because the likelihood is that if it's been on the market all summer long in this market, it's overpriced. So that's one where I'd probably, again, say, some listings are not worth keeping. And until you get motivated to sell, then I can't help you. The same holds true of buyers. I have a couple of sets of buyers that I have on the back burner because what they're looking for is not within their ability to buy. They don't have enough down payment. The price is out of the range, and unfortunately, the prices will continue to be out of range faster and faster as the market equity grows. Is it possible that the market could shift? Absolutely. There are a lot of factors that could cause that. And if that happens, then I may move them to the front burner as I see market values drop if that happens. But right now, I'm not running after them, asking them to look at houses, because there's nothing out there that they can afford that meets their criteria. So I would say probably in this case, if they're cash strapped and emotionally tied to that house, I would probably say let them go. Anyway, I run over on time here a bit, but I thank you for joining. Think about what you're doing to change now and how you're going to change in the future to be ahead of the curve in competition with other realtors. That's the real key. If you are making changes and adapting and improvising at a better rate than other agents out there, you're probably going to get more than your share of the business. So I thank you for joining me. I'll see you here next week. Thanks.